The fire is low and mean tonight, chewing on wet spruce that hisses more than it burns. And the snow out past the light is stacked near 4 feet deep on the level. The wind came down off the ridge about an hour ago, and it has been walking through the trees ever since, patient as a wolf that already knows where you are. I have got my back to a deadfall, and my boots close enough to the coals to steam, and the cold is leaning on the far side of me like a man waiting his turn. The pot is on, and the smell of it is filling this little pocket of timber. It is meat, and plenty of it. Lean, red meat off a young deer I took 2 days back. And by every rule most men carry in their heads, I ought to be the safest man in this whole country right now. But I am not, and I know it, and that is the whole trouble. I have eaten near 2 pounds of that meat already tonight, and I am still hollow. Not hungry the ordinary way, but hollow down in the middle of me, like a barrel with the bottom knocked clean out. I ate till my belly was tight and my jaw was tired, and the hollow only got worse for it. It is the strangest thing a body can feel, to fill yourself up and grow emptier for the effort, like pouring water into a gourd with a split down the side. Now here is the thing I want to set in front of you plain. That pot of good lean meat, the very thing you would trust with your life, has put more strong men in the ground than the bears ever dreamed of. I mean it flat, and I mean it straight. More mountain men died from what was in that pot than were ever pulled down by wolves. I know how backward that sounds, so stay with me. That lean meat will not fill you the way you think. It will not warm you through the long dark of a hard night. It will not hold your body together when the country is trying its level best to take you apart. What it will do is lie to you. It will sit in your belly and feel like a full meal and a saved life and a promise kept, and every bit of that is a trick. It is a promise the meat cannot keep, made in a voice you have trusted since you were a child at your mother's table. Nobody teaches this anymore. Nobody sits a young man down and warns him about it before he goes off alone into the deep country. The warning went quiet a long time ago, and it went quiet for a reason. And there are folks even now who would rather you never heard it, because they sell you the opposite every single day of your life. They have got a word for the lean and clean, and they say it like a blessing. And that blessing has teeth. Here is the mercy in all of it. The fix costs you nothing, not 1 cent. It is the very part of the animal that near everybody alive today scrapes off into the snow, cuts loose and throws to the dogs, or trims away with a curled lip because they were taught it was the bad part. Men walk right past their own salvation and never look down. Keep listening, because once you see this, you will never look at a full meat pole the same way again. Let me tell you who I am, so you know these are not borrowed words. I have run a trap line through country where the nearest living soul was 2 days' walk and a frozen river between us, and that river was no friend of mine. I have wintered alone in a cabin so far back that the smoke of my own fire was the only smoke for 40 miles in any direction. I have gone whole strings of days where the sets came up empty, and I chewed old jerky and watched the light get shorter. I have skinned marten with fingers I could not feel, and I have laid awake listening to the logs pop from the cold like rifle shots. I have been the full man who was starving and did not yet know the name of what was killing him. This kind of knowing does not come from a page, friend. It comes from being scared and cold and wrong, and living just long enough to get it right. It sticks in a man only when he has needed it badly enough to weep over it. I needed it that badly once. That is why I still have it. The men who taught me never read a word of it anywhere. They learned it the hard way, the only way it ever truly takes. They learned it standing over shallow graves scratched into half-froze ground, burying friends who had done everything right by the book in their heads. They knew because the country had already taken people they loved, and it took them by this exact trick. When a man has buried a friend over a thing, he does not forget that thing, and he does not let you forget it either. Now let me name what most folks have flat backward today. They believe that meat is meat, and that a full pole of red lean venison or rabbit or elk is a full larder and a safe winter. They picture that meat hanging in the cold, dark and rich and clean, stacked like cordwood against the hunger to come. They see a man with a fresh kill as a man saved. They look at all that lean red flesh and they see life itself hanging there in the frost. And in the deep of a hard winter, in the killing time, that picture is a lie that walks and talks. Hold on to this next part because it is the whole spine of the story. A man can eat all day, every day, eat until his belly aches and his jaw gives out, eat more meat than a working man could ever want. And that man can starve to death with his mouth still full and grease on his fingers. A full man, starved. I am going to show you exactly how a thing like that happens, how the body does it to itself. But not yet. Keep it in the back of your mind, that picture of the full man dying full, and do not let go of it, because everything I tell you from here is going to circle right back to it. To understand it, you have to see two things come together, the way two forces meet and make a third thing that neither one could make alone. The first force is the season. Late winter is what the old hands called the killing time, and they did not name it that for the cold alone. By late winter, every animal in the country has burned down its own fat to nothing. The deer that was sleek and larded in the fall is a rack of bones under a hide by the tail end of winter. The rabbit is lean as a whip. The elk has run its reserves down, chasing thin browse through deep snow. Everything alive is running on empty, and its flesh shows it. So the meat you take in that season is not the meat you took in the fall. It is red, and it is clean, and it is near pure lean, with hardly a thread of fat left anywhere on the whole carcass. That is the first force, and it is the country itself doing it. The second force is your own body and what the cold demands of it. When the cold has its hand on you, your body is a fire that must be fed, and it is burning through fuel at a rate you would not believe. And here is the cruel hinge of the whole thing. Lean meat cannot be that fuel, not by itself, not in the amounts a cold body needs. And the more of it you eat, the deeper the trouble goes. That is where the trap shuts, and it is a cruel one, because it is baited with the very thing that feels like rescue. Picture the man alone out there. He is cold, he is worn down, he is scared. And then his luck turns, and he takes a deer. He has meat now, more than he can eat. So he does the natural thing, the obvious thing, the thing every instinct in him screams is survival. He eats. He eats his fill of that good red lean meat, and he feels the warmth of a full belly, and he lies down easier than he has in days. And every time he does it, he digs the hole a little deeper. The next day he is hungrier, not less, so he eats more, and the hole goes deeper still. The abundance right in front of him is the very thing draining the life out of him, and it feels like the opposite the whole way down. That is the terrible genius of it. The trap does not feel like a trap. It feels like a saved man eating a good meal. Now here is where most folks go wrong, so lean in close, because if this next piece does not land, nothing else I tell you will keep you alive. Folks believe that food is food. They believe that meat will feed you. They believe that a full belly means a fed body. And every one of those three sits wrong, because they leave out the one thing that turns food into life. Lean meat with no fat to carry it is half a meal, and the half that is missing is the half that keeps you alive. It is a key with no teeth cut into it, that slides into the lock clean and true and turns nothing at all. It is a fire laid perfect with no draft under it. All the wood in the world stacked just so, and not a flame that will catch. You can have the whole of a thing in your hands and still be missing the one part that makes it work. That is the lean meat. All the food, none of the fuel. The body can only do so much with pure lean, and past a certain point, it cannot keep up with what you pour into it. There is a ceiling, and when you press against that ceiling day after day, the machinery inside you starts to choke on its own work. You are feeding it, and it is starving. And both of those are true at the same terrible time. That is the thing the old accounts describe and could not explain. They just knew the meat had turned on them. The people who lived on this land for 1,000 winters running almost never died this way. That ought to tell you something. They had run every hungry winter this country could throw, generation on generation, and they carried the answer in their hands and their habits without ever needing to think it through. They ate the whole animal, and they prized the very parts a newcomer would throw away. They went for the fat first, and the marrow, and the organs, and they fed the lean to the dogs when times were fat enough to allow it. They knew, bone deep, that a rack of lean meat was not a saved life. The ones who died of this were the newcomers, the trappers and the prospectors and the wanderers who came into the country and watched the native people hunt and thought they had learned it. They copied the doing and skipped the knowing. They saw a man kill and eat, and they did not see what part he ate first and why, and that gap in their seeing killed them. So let me hand you the fix the way it was handed to me, in layers, one at a time. I do it this way on purpose, because if I dumped the whole of it on you at once, it would spill right off you and lose all its weight. It came to me slow and hard, and it will hold in you better if it goes in the same way. So take the first layer and turn it over in your mind before I give you the next. The first layer is a thing you have to turn your whole head around to see. The thing you are chasing is not the thing that saves you. You have been raised to chase the lean red meat as the prize, the good part, the real food, and to see the fat as waste or worse. Flip it. The fat is the fuel, and the lean is the lie. Say that over to yourself until it stops sounding strange. In the deep cold, fat is not the thing you trim away and feel virtuous about. Fat is the thing that stands between you and the grave. It is the slow, hot, long fuel that a cold body must have. And it is the one thing that late winter lean meat cannot give you. The prize you are taught to want is the poorest part of the animal for keeping you alive. And the part you are taught to scorn is the whole difference between a fed man and a full corpse. Now the second layer, and this one carries a little edge to it, a little curl of the lip, because modern folks have been taught to feel a kind of shame about it. The organs, the liver, the kidneys, the heart, the rich dark parts down inside the animal that most people today cannot stand the thought of. That is where the life is packed tightest. That is where the body of the animal stored the things your body is screaming for in the cold. And here is the bitter joke of it. That very disgust you feel, that squeamish turning away, is the exact reason the treasure is still lying there, untouched, for the man who knows better. Everybody else scraped it into the snow. The old hands ate it first and ate it gladly, because they knew a liver was worth more than a whole hindquarter of lean when the killing time was on. The shame is a modern invention, and it is a deadly one, because it teaches a starving man to walk away from the richest food in the whole country. Now the third layer, and this one is for your hands, because knowing is nothing until your hands can do it in the dark and the cold. When you take an animal in the lean season, you do not start with the muscle. You start with the fat wherever you can find it. And in late winter, that means you go hunting for it inside the animal, along the guts, around the kidneys, in the marrow of the long bones. You take those long bones and you smash them open with the back of your hatchet or a good rock, and you dig out the marrow, that soft, rich core, and you eat it or you drop it in the pot. You take the bones after and you boil them long and slow, hours if you have the wood, and you watch the top of that water. There will come a film rising up, a bright gold sheen that pools and spreads across the surface like sunlight caught on a still pond. And that gold is the very life you are after. You skim it, you save it, you drink it, you eat it off the bone. You take the liver and you eat it near raw or barely warmed, because too much fire robs it. You strip every scrap of fat off the hide and off the gut, and you render it down, and you keep it in a pouch against the hungry days. You wring every ounce of richness out of that carcass that the country left in it. And know this, that our own ancient kin were cracking marrow bones and prizing the fat and the organs above all else further back than you can rightly picture, long before anyone anywhere set down a single written word. This is not a trick I invented. It is the oldest eating there is. Now the fourth layer, and this one sounds like madness right up until it clicks, because everything in a hungry man fights it. When the fat is gone and all you have is lean meat, and you can feel that hollow opening up in you, the answer is to eat less of the meat, not more. Eat less, not more. I know how that lands on a starving man. I know every part of you screams to eat everything you can hold. But if lean is all you have, then choking down mountains of it only drives your body harder against that ceiling and speeds the very thing that is killing you. Better to eat little, hold what you have, and spend your strength finding fat by any means, than to fill your belly with the poison of pure lean and feel saved while you die. Do less of the thing your instinct is howling at you to do more of. That reversal is the hardest teaching in the whole of the country, and it is the truest. Now circle back to what I told you to hold on to, that full man dying full, and I will show you exactly how the body does it. When you flood a body with lean meat and no fat, the machinery that breaks that meat down has a ceiling it simply cannot climb past, and you go right on eating and pressing against that ceiling anyway. The waste from all that meat has to go somewhere, and it backs up inside you where it was never meant to sit, souring the blood, turning the wellspring of your own body foul. You feel it as a sickness that grows, a headache that will not lift, a weakness in the limbs, a churn in the gut, a fog over the mind. And because none of that lean is giving your fire the fat it needs to burn, the body does a desperate thing. It turns on itself. It starts to burn its own reserves. And when those thin reserves are gone, it starts eating its own muscle, breaking down your own body to keep you standing one more hour. So there you are, eating all day, and your body is devouring itself the whole time, tearing itself down faster than the meat can build it up. You get thinner and weaker with a full belly and grease on your chin. And that is the whole of it, said flat. A man can eat himself to death by starving while he chews. That clawing, bottomless, frantic hunger the old accounts all describe. The one where a man ate and could not stop, and could not be satisfied. That is not greed, and it is not weakness of the spirit. Do not ever let a soul tell you those men were gluttons or fools. That frantic eating was the body doing the only thing it knew, screaming for the one thing missing. It was hollering a single word up through the belly and the blood, over and over, louder and louder, and the word was fat. Fat. The body knew what it needed, and it could not make the man understand. So it just drove him to eat and eat, hoping the next mouthful would finally carry it. It never did. The screaming was the truest thing in him, and he could not read it. And here is the cruelest turn the country keeps for last. The season you need that fat the most, the deep cold of late winter, when your fire is burning hottest and hungriest, is the exact season when there is no fat to be found anywhere in the whole country. Every animal has burned its own down to nothing surviving the same winter you are surviving. So the thing that would save you is scarcest at the very hour your life depends on it. That is not bad luck, and it is not chance. That is the country lining things up just so. That is winter and hunger working the same side of the table against you. That is the country putting you to the test, and it does not grade easy. Now let me tell you why nobody ever told you this, and it is nothing dark, no plot, no hidden hand. It comes down to money and time, the way most lost things do. A piece of hard survival wisdom only stays alive in people's mouths as long as people actually need it to live. The day it stops being needed is the day it starts to die. And I can tell you near enough the day this one began to die. It was the day the road reached the valley. It was the day the store opened its doors at the edge of the settlement. It was the day a man could walk in and buy his fat wrapped in paper, buy his lard in a tin, buy his tallow and his oil off a shelf, instead of cracking a bone for it in the snow. Once a man could buy the thing instead of making it, he stopped needing to know where it came from. And a thing that is not needed for one single generation is a thing that goes into the ground with the old folks who last needed it. That is how knowing dies. Not with a fight, with a shrug and a full store shelf. And then something worse happened. Something I want you to see clearly. The trade took that old truth and turned it clean upside down and sold it right back to you. They took the fat, the very fuel of life, and they taught you to fear it and trim it and throw it out. And they took the lean, the poor half meal, and they stamped a word on it like a badge of honor and hung it up as the healthy choice. Lean. They say it like virtue itself, and there is no money in telling a man his own free fat off his own kill is his salvation. But there is a mountain of money in selling him the lean and the fear both. I am not telling you it is a wicked plot. It is not. It is just the quiet arithmetic of what sells, working itself out over 100 years, until the truth got stood on its head, and nobody even remembered it had ever stood the other way. Let me be straight with you now, the way I would want a man to be straight with me, because I would rather you trust me than be impressed by me. This is not going to happen to most of you. Most men listening to me will never spend a week alone in the deep country, living on nothing but what they kill. You would need to be cut off from any store, from any fat you did not render yourself, living hand to mouth off lean game in the killing time, day after day, with the cold burning your fire hot. That is a narrow set of circumstances, and I will not pretend it is your Tuesday. But here is the turn I need you to hear. Every single man this ever came for thought that exact same thing. Every one of them was certain it was somebody else's problem, right up until the week the store was too far, and the fat was all gone, and the meat was all lean, and the cold would not let up. It does not announce itself. It just waits for the one winter you thought could not touch you. Now hear the hard proof, so you know I am not spinning you a fireside tale. There is a booklet put out by the United States Army in the years of the Second World War, meant to teach fighting men how to stay alive in country that wanted them dead. And it lays this very thing out plain. The danger of trying to live on lean meat alone with no fat to carry it. That is no legend. That is set down in black and white by men who needed their soldiers to come home. And the man who proved it with his own body was an explorer of the far north named Vilhjalmur Stefansson, who lived years among the native people of the ice and ate as they ate, and who later, under watching eyes back in the settled world, took only meat for a long stretch to show what it did. When they fed him lean alone, he grew sick within days, sick as a dog, weak and fouled and failing. And the moment they gave him back the fat, the rich and the marrow and the organs, the sickness lifted off him like fog burning off a river at dawn, and he was a whole man again. That happened. That is no fireside story. A man was cured of dying by the very grease you were taught to throw in the bin. So carry these 5 things out of here in your head, and let them be simple enough to hold in the dark. Eat the fat first, and prize it above every other part of the animal. Crack the long bones and take the marrow, and boil the bones long, and skim the gold off the top. Eat the organs, the liver and the heart and the kidneys, and let no squeamishness rob you. When lean is all you have, eat little of it and spend your strength hunting fat instead. And never, ever let a full belly convince you that you are a fed man. For a full belly is the finest liar in all the country. Now hear the real lesson, the one bigger than meat and fat and cold. Those men did not die because the country was cruel to them. The country was never cruel. The country was only ever just the country, doing what it has always done, asking the same hard question it asks every soul who walks into it. They died because they were certain. They were sure they knew what food was. Sure, a full belly meant a saved life. Sure, the lean was the good part and the fat was the waste. And their certainty walked them right into the ground. The country never kills the humble man half as fast as it kills the sure one. The humble man doubts and looks closer and eats the strange rich parts just in case and lives. The certain man knows better and starves full. So here is the whole of it, small enough to carry and free as the snow on the ground. In the cold, the fat is the fuel and the lean is the lie. So eat the parts they told you to throw away, and never trust a full belly to tell you the truth. That is it. That is the thing that would have saved 100 good men. And it costs you nothing but the humbling of what you thought you knew. This knowing nearly went into the ground with the last old hands who needed it. And I have watched too much good hard wisdom go down into the dirt that way already. And I will not stand by and watch this one follow it. So I am handing it to you, and now it is yours to keep alive. Tell me something, would you? Did your grandparents or the old folks in your family ever save the fat, or crack the bones for marrow, or eat the organs that most folks today would turn away from? I would truly like to know what knowing your own people carried before you go. And come back next time, because I am going to tell you about the water, and about how the clearest, coldest, cleanest running stream in the whole country can be the very thing that lays a strong man out flat and empties him from the inside. Clear water is not safe water, and I will show you why. Take care of your fire, and do not ever trust a full belly to tell you the truth.